Hello, everyone. I'm delighted that you have decided to join us. Just a personal disclaimer for me and my house. It is very likely at some point during the course of this call that my very sweet dogs, Ellington and Strayhorn, will try to talk to the neighbors. So I hope that doesn't distract us too much. I just wanted to throw that out there and let you know there might be some background noise. Again, I'm delighted that you're all here. I'm delighted that this conversation, as it is seemingly ever ongoing, is important to you. It is certainly important to us. Before we get started, I'm just going to ask Deb, our moderator, if she would just call out and identify those of us who serve on the AUUMM board and staff team. Deb, could you?
Yes, I'd be glad to do that. Let me start with our staff and introduce our acting executive director, Loris Gray-Hauk, right there. And I don't know, because I'm not looking at the Hollywood Squares board, is our administrator, Mary Ellen Morgan, in the house? Okay. I'm getting told to no. So we do have Mary Ellen on our staff, and we are grateful to her as well. And I would like to introduce you to the members of the AUUMM board, starting with our members at large. Amanda Thomas, who I know is here. There's Amanda. Thank you, Amanda. And a member at large, Joel Chapman. And is Joel here right now? I think not, because Joel is teaching. And member at large, Reverend Christy Lunsford. And I believe I saw Christy come in the room. There's Christy. Thank you so much. And our treasurer, Lyle Brown, otherwise known as LB. Thank you. And our secretary, Sarah Jebian. There's Sarah. Thank you so much. And I'm your moderator. I'm Deb Weiner. And good to be with you. And you have met our president, Dero Farrar. And that's who we are. Dero.
Thank you. Before we dive in, I'm feeling a need to just take a moment and pause. I will offer some words from one of our hymnals, one of our faith traditions hymnals. It's "How Can I Keep From Singing?" These are the words from Jules L. Ramey, and I can't wait another 100 years. And I can't wait another 100 years. No, I won't wait another 100 years. And you won't see my eyes clouded with tears, blurring my vision for another 100 years. And I won't go around just feeling blue. No, I won't go around just feeling blue. Because there's some things I know I've got to do, and I can't get them done by feeling blue. So I can't wait another 100 years. No, I can't wait another 100 years. And you won't see my eyes clouded with tears, blurring my vision for another 100 years. In light of the work that we've got to do, and recognizing that this has been a tough week all around, there's a lot of shit out there. I think we just need to take a moment to pause and reflect, because I think it might be spiritually irresponsible for us to just go on with business as usual in days like this. So just a moment. Thank you. So as we are gathered here to talk about the AUUMM and our relationship with the UUA's General Assembly Planning Committee, I know that there are many, many questions in this room, and we're so glad that all of you are here, whether or not you are a member of AUUMM. But because there are so many of us here, and because it is our mission to serve our colleagues through the AUUMM, we're gonna try to prioritize questions from our membership first. And when there is space and time to hear questions from others, we will certainly do that. But it is important to us to hear from our folks and to make sure that they are being served at this time. As you know, either from the video message you received this week or from other information you've received from us in the past several months, we are struggling to find resolution with the GAPC around good and fair and just treatment for those many good and faithful musicians that have served GA for years and years and years, and who desire to continue that service, but do not desire to be continually mistreated. And so we're happy to answer any questions that you have. I think the documentation has laid it out pretty clearly, but I know that there are still some lingering questions, so I'm happy to begin taking those now. And I will rely on Loris and Deb to let me know who's asking a question when.
Sure. And so we'd like to encourage you, if you can, to raise a virtual hand if you have a question, and then we can unmute you and take your questions in order. And so I'm just scanning and looking for people who have a virtual hand raised. And we'll also look and see whether there are people in the gallery view. So I am seeing Benji Messer. So Benji, I'd like to unmute you. Sometimes Zoom is quite cranky, but I think we've got you unmuted, so please go ahead.
Hi. I don't have a question. I just felt like it was appropriate to introduce myself at this time as well. I am the music director for this year's General Assembly, and I'm also a member of AUUMM and very supportive of our board and of the negotiations that you've been involved in. And I just wanted to also say that and say that I appreciate all of you being here, and I'm also interested in resolving this, for everyone. So.
Thank you, Benji.
Thank you, Benji. And might I just ask also, as we are going through this, if you would just let us know your name, where you serve, in what capacity you serve, and which pronouns we should be using for you, I would be grateful. Thank you.
That's great. So I'm looking for hands either virtual or in the participants list. Once again, if you have a question or a comment. Otherwise, we're going to just say that this is a lovely gathering of all of us.
Lorenzo.
And I'm seeing Lorenzo, and so.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Lorenzo Bassman. I'm the music director at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Fresno in California. And I just wanted to say for everybody, it's just that it seems like it's more important now to resolve, or close as we can to resolving the situation, because since we're not traveling, there'll be a lot more of us able to come. And I, for example, We have been doing virtual worship for over 2 months now, and we're going to start figuring out how to take time off for the people who are working their butts off to try to make this happen, including, instead of having a service on GA Sunday, to direct our people to the GA Sunday morning service. And so I think it's kind of urgent for me and maybe a lot of other people, since they can all attend if they want to know, just get it as updated as possible, to know whether I want to participate in that and whether I want to recommend to my congregation whether we participate or not. That's
Sure.
it.
Thank you. And as stated before, we are unable to tell you what to do. We cannot tell you to participate or to not participate. What we can tell you is that we do not believe that the General Assembly planning and process have been done in good faith with regards to a relationship with members of the AUUMM, but also musicians writ large. That is true for this year as much as it is true for every year prior. So it really just comes down to your own priorities. Is it important for you to participate and feel that connection to the broader denomination in that moment, or does it feel more important for you to be in solidarity with your colleagues? And that again is a conversation that we are delighted to have, but a decision that we cannot make for you.
So David Glasgow, you are next. Please go ahead.
Hi, I'm hoping I have all of my mics set in a way that you can hear me.
We can hear you, thank you.
Okay. Too many mic setups for too many options, as I'm sure you all know right now. So first, I want to say thank you to Benji for taking on a terrifying job that was terrifying even before it became a virtual job. Second, I want to thank the board for all the work you have done and are doing on our behalf, and all of the sleepless nights that I assure you this has been yet another item on the list of things keeping you awake. So thank you for that. And third, this next statement is going to be voiced with some anger, because it's anger I've been carrying around for 4 years, and I hope that you can understand this is not directed at anyone whose face is currently on the screen. You keep saying we can't say not to do it. If this were literally any other professional organization in the world being treated this way, we would say don't. I'm confused as to how the Unitarian Universalist Association allows its own people to be treated the way we've been treated and pretend it's okay, pretend it's a different category of injustice from the kind of injustices we see protested from the GA floor every single year. And my blood pressure just went up, but I just wanted to voice that and get that out there, because this is, the responses I've seen from GAPC members and from UUA folks express confusion as to why we're upset. And I feel like that is, I have trouble believing that is not disingenuous, if that was enough triple negatives to make my point clear.
Thank you, David. I'm going to speak for Duro. I'm going to speak for your colleague and member of the organization, not as your president. I don't want you to participate in GA, and it irritates me. You know, that we are divided on this. But as a leader of this organization, as a leader in this faith, I have to recognize your agency. I have to recognize your power of choice, and I have to recognize that you may have a different idea of what is better for a better solution for this problem than maybe I do or we do. And so in that sense of collegiality, in that sense of recognition, we as a professional organization, which I remind you is different from a labor organization, cannot tell you what to do. Me as a person, I don't want you to do it. So maybe, hopefully that offers a little bit of frank clarity that I hope was not inappropriate. Luckily, I cannot see Deb's face, so hopefully she's not glaring at me.
I am not glaring at you, and I thank you. I'm going to go next to a question that was put in the chat by Reverend Jason Lydon, who is in the House. Is there a specific way people who are not musicians can be helpful or act in solidarity? I appreciate the point that AUUMM is not a labor organization and this is not a strike, though I am curious how non-music leading clergy can be supportive.
Great, and I'm happy to answer that, and I'll remind my fellow board members that you can speak up at any time. Few ideas of ways that you can support. First, look in your own house. Are you treating your musicians fairly? Are you paying them sufficiently? And not just according to the UUA guidelines, but according to the work that they are doing, the actual time that they are putting in, the job description that you are supervising. Are you treating your musicians in your own house well? And a first step to figuring that out might be to ask them. So that's the first thing. The second thing is if you're a member of another professional organization, the AUUMM, for example, you can be asking them about how they are participating in helping to resolve this problem from a minister standpoint at General Assembly. What messaging are they giving to their constituency to make this known and make people more aware of it, and to make sure that there are no bad actors from their organizations. So that's another way. And the other thing you can do is to discern for yourselves how you spend your professional development dollars. Do you want to go to GA because it's fun, or do you want to maybe use your professional development money in some other way that's a little bit less fraught this year? So those are some options, and I'm sure there are other ideas as well.
Thank you. And I recognize Emily Jaworski. Emily, I think you can unmute yourself.
Hello there. Yes, sorry, I was unmuting and videoing.
Thank you.
I am just wondering if anybody is willing to brief us on the nature of the current conversation. I feel like I've read all the documents that have been posted so far, but where are we stuck? What are the issues? What are we asking for that's not being met or addressed in a satisfactory way?
So I think the first thing I'll say is that there currently is no conversation with the GAPC. No matter how we've tried, the General Assembly Planning Committee has not reached out to us in any meaningful way since November. We recently heard from them 2-3 weeks ago, saying that they have requested that the UUA board step in to help facilitate and moderate this conversation. We heard today from the moderators of the UUA board saying that is somewhere on their agenda to do. So frankly, there has not been any conversation since late last year, though we have tried and tried and tried to reach out. When we left the conversation, or I shouldn't say left the conversation, the last conversation we had with them, we tried to make clear that it was important that there be some central authority in the GA process, GA planning process and the GA execution process. Some non-ministerial authority, some non-musician authority, some other person who can hold all of the pieces and keep everyone in the picture on the same page. We've been calling that, correct me if I'm wrong, a production manager, to sort of act as, to act with the technical directors and to act with the worship teams and to act with the music coordinators and to act with everyone to keep all the pieces together to make sure that there's adequate communication, that there's clear directives and a clear vision for how GA will play out, and that no individual otherwise would hold authority, regardless of their so-called call to ministry or their so-called position within the association. We made that clear, and at the time that we last had a conversation, that had not been done. I understand that they have hired someone, but the second part of that is that we offered to be a part of that process. We were promised that we would be a part of that process, and then we were not a part of that process. So that's one thing. Then there's the question of fair compensation for time put in, which actually I'm gonna pass that part of the conversation to Sarah Jebian, since she did the most work on it.
Hello, everybody. So as far as fair compensation goes, what we were looking for is for the four main music leaders: the GA choir director, the GA music coordinator, the band leader, and the accompanist, to receive money. We didn't get close to scale even, but we got further along than we've ever been before. So we wanted registration waived for all four of those people. We wanted and asked for travel expenses, lodging expenses, all job-related expenses to be covered. And in addition to that, we wanted a $200 per call stipend. So if you're the music coordinator and you end up being on stage and singing or leading music in some way, you get $200 every time that you do that. Same with the band leader, et cetera, et cetera. So we were trying to make it so that if you go to GA and participate in this, and you have to pay for childcare, and you have to cancel a week of teaching, and cancel your 3 other jobs that you do to make ends meet as a musician, you don't end up losing money. You might not make too much, but you don't end up losing money. The GAPC did agree to those terms. And then what the sticking point was, so if you've read the history of what we did, we had gone through all these negotiations, and the two groups had come to an understanding about the contractual money that would be exchanged, and this role of production manager, which we on the board of AUUMM felt was an essential role to making some of the things that have been problems for years and years and years go away. Part of the issues were about communication and about who does what, and just keeping track of the 10,000 moving parts in GA. So we had reached an agreement, and we had reached what we thought was an agreement about who would do what, which was that AUUMM, as we have forever, would go ahead and select the music leaders and get them on board. And we were in the process of doing that when the GAPC, we learned through other channels, had already gone ahead and hired some people without talking to us. We didn't see their contracts, so we didn't know if what we had agreed to was actually being honored. And we were supposed to be involved with this production manager role, which in our negotiations was very, very clear that they didn't understand what it was really that we were asking for. So we gave them the job description. We asked to be involved in the hiring process and interview process. And some of us are long-term theater professionals. We understood what that role was. So we wanted to help. And we were basically shut out of the process entirely. And it was at that point that we felt we could no longer sit at the table and have a discussion. And GA needed to happen. It was February when all this came down, I think, or late January when all this came down. So we understood that they needed to move forward and get GA going. And we thought, okay, we're going to hit the pause button. We're going to step back and, try to regroup after GA 2020. So hopefully that answers a bunch of questions all at once.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay, we're going next to Laura Weiss. And Laura, go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Good. I have these really big headphones, so sometimes I'm not sure if they're like actually working. I was just wondering, as a person who resigned as the band leader for this year at GA as part of my solidarity with all of this, I'm wondering how the board is hoping that the impact might be experienced, given that we are shifting to a virtual GA. And I know a piece of this was our ability to shift and say, if we're not there in this capacity, then that might be experienced, and then therefore there could be a reaction because they're not getting business as usual. But what's challenging now with virtual platform is that it's already not business as usual now. So I'm kind of curious what the board is hoping for in terms of what might be an impact this year, or if that's going to even be possible given the COVID situation. So maybe that's not an answerable question. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it's not, but I think we can try. So who knows, right? Who knows what the effect of the pandemic is going to have on anything at this point? One thing I can say as a personal hope, and I think a hope for our organization, is that whether the GAPC and the AUUMM get along or not, I hope that the people who are participating in GA this year, especially given the nuts amount of changes they have to do in a short amount of time, I hope that they are treated like royalty. I hope that they are treated really well. I hope that they are paid really well. I hope that they are recognized over and over and over. I hope that they are thanked over and over and over. And because we have more than 2 decades of history that will tell us that that is not likely, we are hoping that they will come back and tell us how we can even under those circumstances help to improve the situation. So that's one. I'm hoping that enough people, I know that we're not going to reach nearly all of the denomination, but we're hoping that enough people recognize or notice that something is amiss in this, whether it's whatever, whether it's in the quality of the music, whether it's in how loud we as an organization have been and continue to be. Hopefully enough people will notice that something is wrong and will begin to ask questions and make demands of the organization, of specifically the UUA and GAPC. I don't imagine that that's going to happen fully this year, but certainly as we are talking about getting into 2021, that is our hope.
This is Deb Weiner, and I just wanted to add one other thing when we talk about what we're hoping for. We talk about integrity a lot, and that is a high value, I think, for us as ministry professionals. I feel that there has been a real disconnect in this process between what AUMM understood our agreements were, or commonly held agreements and commitments to one another, and the way things played out. And that has been discouraging and hurtful. And it seems to me that it is pretty much at the center of being able to reestablish trust and engagement from all of us toward commonly held goals. So that's a hope for some sense of integrity. And, time will tell how that's played out. looking for other individuals who want to speak, either by raising a virtual hand. I see Christy Lunsford. Please go ahead. Oops, I just remuted you when you unmuted yourself. Go for it.
It's okay. I couldn't find the little virtual thing. So I want to speak to some of my colleagues in the room who are ministers. I hold both sides of credentialing and serve the board for the musicians at this point. And there are things that we can do as ministers, and that is really learning to communicate across lines and accepting that there are many, many ways of doing ministry. And we certainly don't want to be in situations, I never want to be in a situation with my musician that works for me and with me, that puts me in a place where we're having a fight, where we're having a tension in worship, right? That is the place where your musician can make or break you. And that relationship is ultimate to me, that in worship, we are to be together. And it makes it really hard to hear the stories. And we could tell you decades of stories of ministers who obtain the center stage light of GA and then musicians being pushed way under the rug. And so, yes, we can do things in our own congregations with our ministry and our ministry teams to support them, but we do need to also look at the bigger picture. As an association, it's on to the association itself. We'll post more of the things. I think we did post the letter a while back. And some of the communications, but we can post more of those things certainly, and I can ask for those to be posted, and I'm sure Jeanette would love to do that, being a musician herself. And it's remembering when you're under pressure that sometimes we don't act our best. And we fall into our own bad habits and we take it out on the ones we love. So that's the tension that we're fighting. We're trying to be this association, do our professional job, be our big selves, and do the thing. And our colleagues on the other side tend to get stressed. And so we act poorly together. So I would ask you to have the conversation with your current musician and never put them in a situation where they feel pressured to participate to the larger denomination in a way that questions their integrity before you've had that conversation with them. We all have our own thing going on in the MA right now that we know we're going to have to face here in a month. It's a very similar thing in AUUMM as well. It's that same kind of tension of where's the integrity lie? What do we have to stand solid in saying together? And I really applaud the board for the stand they've been able to say, we just can't do this anymore. We have had as many people leave, whether they're marginalized identities or not. Musicians, we have had as many people walk away as you can think any marginalized identity. And we've lost those talents.
Thank you, Christy.
Yeah.
Loris had a comment, and then just to let you know how we're going to tee up, we're going to go after Loris to Nancy Holland.
Thank you, Deb. I just wanted to piggyback on Dirt Row and Sarah about requests that we were making that would better the GA experience for everyone, in particular this production manager that we outlined. If you do hear from members of GAPC, they did hire this person. One of our problems was, as Sarah said, we were not included in that conversation and had some really great opportunities to bring people into the fray, into a role that would give them some kind of power within the organization. There was an opportunity to break down structures of white supremacist culture and open up that job position to the broader public. The listing was never posted anywhere that we are aware of. There was never an interview process. No applications were accepted. The role was given to an inside friend who, my understanding, is a white man. these things come up over and over again, and we're missing out on opportunities. And I am so grateful to serve this organization and with this board, and I'm so proud to stand with them in this time that it's not easy to stand up and say, we need to do something. So thank you to all who are here and listening and lifting this up.
Thanks, Loris. And Nancy Holland, you are unmuted.
Thank you. And thank you to the board. Thank you to Loris. Thank you to all the people who are speaking so clearly and articulately about the problem. I'm in great sympathy with the situation, and I feel like I really do want to support the board and what you're trying to do here. I'm wondering how we can take this back to our congregations. I'm at the UU Church of Studio City, the music director there. I assume it would be helpful for me to talk to my congregation about this issue. And can I, as music director, encourage them not to attend GA in protest? And what else can we do? And is there specific materials that we can take to our congregation that would be helpful in supporting you?
Thanks, Nancy. I think, so to start, I can say that any of our documentation, any of our updates about this conversation on our website can be shared with anyone in your congregation. I think that it's important for you to tell your congregation, your congregational leaders, and your minister why you are not attending GA. It's important to be clear with them why you will not attend. In terms of discouraging them from attending, that's a different thing altogether, because this is the annual meeting of the denomination, and it is important. You know, I believe in voting, so it is important that we have a fair and democratic process that includes voices from all of the edges. So that is a different thing. But supporting an annual meeting is very different is a very different thing, a very different question than supporting all of the other stuff that happens around GA. So sending delegates to GA, especially in a time when it's virtual, that is its own thing. But the extent to which you spend money as a non-delegate to attend GA is something that you and your congregation should have a conversation about. Certainly.
Thank you.
I'd like to add to that.
Oh yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
I do. So I'm mindful of a situation last year when I attended GA in the opening ceremony, when everybody, literally everybody who had anything to do with GA was introduced except the musicians, which was an incredibly hurtful thing, given how hard I had seen my friends working. As far as people being in the room, I think it would be good to have people in the room to look out for things like that and to speak up when you see it. So I would just say, if you are encouraging your congregation to go, make sure that they have the information that we have shared with you. And if they see something that doesn't feel like it's honoring the work of the musicians, say something. Speak up loud and proud right then. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to recognize our UUA trustee, Sarah Dan Jones.
Hi, friends. This is Sarah Dan Jones. I'm also a member of AUUMM, which is why I'm here. One of the reasons I'm here. I live in Plymouth, New Hampshire. I live in Concord, New Hampshire, and I serve the church in Plymouth, New Hampshire. Yeah, I'm happy to be here. I have sat in on a couple of conversations. I know that Deb and I have had some conversations. And, I have also seen what's going on. Jerome's talking about his dog. My dog's speaking to you now, but anyway, I'm gonna treat. That doesn't work. Oh, sorry. I find myself in a really odd position, obviously, right? As a member of AUUMM, a former president, I also was the, Jan Chamberlain was our first GA music coordinator, and I was the second one and the one who negotiated a lot of places where we are at this moment or where we were. And so I have a lot of, I keep hearing about the history of, you know, folks who have served at GA and what it feels like. And there certainly is a part of me that can empathize with that and sees it and saw it, you know, and then also saw a great deal of change, a great deal of change, and a lot of working towards collegiality that had not existed before. And so, you know, for me, that's my story, that's my history in it. So while I don't disagree with the requests that are made, and I hear and see those things, I echo Deb's comments in that it's definitely sad, and that there was such a breakdown in communication between the AUUMM board, which is a volunteer organization, and the General Assembly Planning Committee, which is a volunteer organization. And so that saddens me as well. And I hope that coming out of this, improved communications can happen. I'm interested to hear, I have read the documents as well, and so it's interesting to hear your conversations around it, and I appreciate that immensely. The awkward position I find myself in, obviously, is also I serve on the Unitarian Universalist Association board, and it is our policy on the board to speak as one voice, and to not to be clear about where we're coming from, and as a whole, and that presents in itself a very difficult position for those of us who are religious professionals on the board, right? I mean, it's a difficult position, and we're all in varying communities. You are my community. The folks on our board that serve Laredo, that's also their community. The UUMA, that's their community. Folks in the Finding Our Way Home gathering, that's their community. So we struggle with this, like we struggle with where we go. And our hope is to look at our overall mission of what the Unitarian Universalist Association is trying to do. And I believe that music is a big part of it. And I believe that that the board believes that music is a big part of it. I will say, sorry, Jerome. Come on. I will say that, and this is in transparency, we did receive a document on the UUA board at our April meeting, and regarding their stance on where you were in your communications. This is not an excuse, friends. This is the truth. And I'm not saying that April was soon enough. It obviously was too late. Okay, obviously it was too late. But at our April meeting, we did not meet in person. We met virtually. And a great deal of our conversation was, how do we plan for a General Assembly as a whole, in a large and a virtual? And so I will say that that document was there, and that I believe is what Duro was speaking about when he heard from our co-moderators that that we did not take up that document, and we did not look at it. And so that's transparency, and our plan is to look at it. We meet every Monday night. So
thanks, Sarah Dan.
Yeah.
Duro.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that. Everything that Sarah Dan says is true, and thank you for that. And it is also true, I just want to make this very clear, there are almost zero people who have held a music leadership position in a General Assembly who would do it again. There are almost zero people who have ever done that would do it again. That is importance to remember. because we are all, most of us, professional musicians, and we're professional church musicians, and we love doing this thing. So why would we so readily refuse the opportunity to do it in the biggest venue? Clearly there's a problem. The other thing that I'll say is, we're getting some response from people that our actions and that our stance on this is anti-Unitarian Universalist, it's anti-UUA, that we are somehow not in support of the denomination, and that's simply not true. And as much as we are in support of the work of the denomination, we are more in support of the promise of the denomination, the promise of the faith. We expect of Unitarian Universalism and of the UUA that we will behave exactly the way we preach, that we will behave exactly the way we expect the rest of the world to behave. And so us making demands based on our sense of integrity is not anti-denominational. In fact, I'd argue that it is pro-denominational, and it's certainly pro-Unitarian Universalist. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you. Cecilia Hayes, I understand, has a question. Is that right? I'm assuming that it is Cecilia CNN Hayes. Is that right?
That's right.
Thank you.
That's absolutely who it is.
Thank you.
I'm coming to you from Seattle. Cecilia Hayes, Unitarian Universalist, and I'm also a member of the General Assembly Planning Committee. And I am a musician. I was a musician from birth. And I have been a musician and a dedicated musician within this faith. And when I sit at the table, particularly these days, among my colleagues on the planning committee, I sit there undivided as a musician in that space as well. I come here not to advocate or to do anything other than bring my perspective as someone who has had the uncomfortable and uncommon ability to sit and see things from multiple sides. I appreciate Sarah Dan Jones for opening that door for me, because I struggled with whether or not I would be able to do anything at this meeting other than witness. And what I want to say to you, as someone who has sat at that table and struggled with those people to try and do what we consider to be best, as someone who witnessed with my own eyes the difficulty and the issues that Leon and other musicians who've held that position have gone through, this has been wrenching for me. And yet I can tell you that as you know, authentic and skillfully articulated as the AUUMM narrative is, as they say, there's always another side. And it is deeply uncomfortable for me to sit here and have to say that, and there's no way I would, other than the fact that I've been sitting at the table. Half of the people at that planning committee table are folks of color, and a lot of them are also musicians. And so it's not that there is no desire to find a way to walk again in right relationship. Honestly, I want to make it clear that I'm speaking for myself, because like the ministers, the GAPC is a body that likes to speak as one voice, but I'm the one sitting here. I'm the one who wants to see this work. I'm the one who has, with all of my soul and all of my being, empathy and sympathy and solidarity with people who make music. And there needs to be a way to get to a clear and well-lighted place so that the cross communication and missed communications can actually happen and some connections can be made. I deeply care about musicians. I deeply care about musicians and the place of musicians in this faith community that we are building and that we're looking forward to. They care too. The members of the planning committee care as well. There's got to be a way to do this so that we are not adversaries because we want the same things. And I feel it in my body. How can this be?
Thank you, Cecilia.
Thank you.
I will just note in response to that, that almost every single AUUMM board member was at almost every conversation with the GAPC. And almost none of the other GAPC members, other than the chair, were usually present, the chair and a couple of staff people. And so I just want to note that just for transparency's sake, even though the conversations were mostly recorded, the information that gets passed, in fact, those recorded conversations, but the perspective of the one person from the committee who came to represent the whole. And so just to name, that for the sake of transparency, that is part of the problem. Part of the problem is that that the narrative that has come from the GAPC has all been filtered through two people that have a very different understanding of what has happened than the 6 or 7 or so of us on the AUUMM board who are all unified in our perspective. So that needs to be noted as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Dero. And just to let people know our process here, it is 6 p.m. I believe that we agreed that we will stop by 6:30 p.m. That is obviously Eastern time. So we are going to, in order, Emily Jaworski, then to David Glasgow, and we are opening the floor to non-AUMM questions as well. So if there are others of you who have questions, please do feel free. But Emily Jaworski, you're next.
Thank you so much for recognizing me again. I know the time is short, and I also failed to introduce myself appropriately last time. My name is Emily Jaworski, she, her, hers. I'm not currently serving a UU congregation, but last year I served as the music coordinator, a role that I decided to leave a year earlier than my contract indicated, mostly because, as people sort of hinted at, in the respect that and love that we showered on Benji, as we should continue to do until the end of time, it was just more than I could handle, given the fact that I had a full-time academic job. I always said to people the only reason I could even serve as the music coordinator was because I wasn't serving a congregation. And so I don't really know how people do that. But the point I wanted to make, as Sarah Dan articulated beautifully and Cecilia articulated beautifully, this is such a hard conversation and it's very emotional. And it wasn't until I heard Sarah Dan speak that I finally got a little bit of clarity for myself. I was lucky enough as music coordinator that I served with people who respected me and cared about me and listened to me. And so I have to admit, when this conversation first came forth from our board, I felt a little bit of cognitive dissonance because I had an overwhelmingly positive personal experience with the people that I had the chance to interact with. And what finally just clicked for me is that we're not talking about those people, we're talking about the failures of the system. And so while I had a great personal experience, I know that the staff that I worked with cannot say the same thing, and that people that I was working to supervise were hurt. And so what I finally see with clarity now, and the difficulty is that many of us work with phenomenal ministers who love and respect us and who fuel us spiritually. And so that can sometimes be the distance that we are missing in order to see the system with clarity. So shout out to the Music Leader Certification Program and studying systems theory, but for anybody who is still sitting with, why are we talking about this? I know so many nice people. What we're really trying to address is how deep these issues go and how can our professional organization reach into the roots of the discomfort and try to heal this from the bottom up. And so I will, in the interest of transparency, I love Benji and I respect him so much, and we're working together to do some things, and I'm still supporting some of the music at GA 2020. But I'm gaining clarity on the question for me is, when I am in conversation with someone who's asking me to do something, am I in my integrity? Do I feel respected and honored as a person? Is there a discomfortable, an edge of discomfort where we can teach each other and learn and grow? Or is this something that I need to say, this is beyond my capability for solving and healing, and I need to trust my board to do that deeper work? So I don't know if any of that is helpful to the conversation, but I just felt like that was really bubbling up for me. So thanks for letting me share that.
Thanks, Emily.
Thank you. We're going to go next to David Glasgow, please. And David, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Thank you. So I also realized I failed to introduce myself appropriately. I was GA Music Coordinator for 2012 and 13, 14, somewhere in there. It's been a while. I've been carrying this around a while. And thank you, Emily, for saying basically what I was about to say. I want to just take that another step further. One of the reasons that I love Unitarian Universalism, one of the reasons that I am so passionate about this organization, about this movement, about my work here, is that we care about the individual. We care about the person who doesn't feel like they fit in anywhere else. We welcome people who have been wounded elsewhere, and we hear their pain, we feel their pain, we try to meet their pain, listen to them, solve their pain, all of the things. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's individual. And it's very easy to get addicted to that feels good sensation of making that one person feel better. It feels really good to rescue an individual who's been wounded and to help them get through that pain and get them to a place where they feel like they can be part of the community. And the danger in that feeling good is that it's really easy for us to fall into a pattern of not caring that we're hurting people because we get to fix them later. And I feel like that is the system we have in place. We have a system that time after time after time after time after time is hurting musicians. It's hurting professionals. It's hurting religious professionals who are in this business because we love this, and who do it for less money than we should be getting, for more hours than we should be putting in, because we find it's important and because we believe in it. And somehow that system allows us to be wounded because it feels good to care for those people afterwards. So my suggestion, and I am very cautious the way I look speaking in these terms, but there's an awful lot going on in the world right now that seems to be about solving individual problems, putting little band-aids on individual situations, addressing localized concerns without digging into the roots of what's going on. And I feel like we, as a largely privileged organization, we are working on that, but I feel like the roots under the surface of the organization that we all serve are roots of privilege, and we're not used to uprooting. We're afraid to uproot ourselves for the sake of social change, and I think that's what needs to happen. And that is why I support not supporting GA in any way other than voting, because the voting is how we make the change. But the other stuff is how we make ourselves look good. And frankly, we don't deserve to look good right now.
Thank you, David, very much. And So there are some, I just want to say there are some comments being put in the chat, which are certainly important, and I hope you will take a moment to read them. And we are now welcoming comments from people who are not members of AUUMM. If you have them, again, you can raise your virtual hand or wave at the screen or something like that. Just taking a moment. Jeanette Lollier, happy to recognize you. Go ahead and unmute yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. I put some things in the chat earlier, but I thought I'd say them out loud too. I'm Jeanette Lollier. I'm the Director of Operations for the Ministers Association and a longtime member of AUUMM. And I just, this is more of a question to the board. We at the UUMA really want to be a good partner to AUUMM. We have for a long time. And anything that we can publish to our members, whether it be, I guess we need direction into what your message is that you want sent. So I would love to know who to connect with around that, because we want to get the right message out there, because we do want to be a good partner and be supportive. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Jeanette. I think part of the conversation, part of the answer to that was answered in part by Reverend Lunsford earlier, and that is yes, bring awareness to your minister colleagues, bring awareness so that everyone knows what's going on, but we've got to stop this. Let me start that over. Ministers in particular have to recognize that they sit at the top currently of the privilege pyramid for religious professionals in this faith, and so when they gently suggest to their musicians in their congregations that they participate in GA or that they serve in GA in some way, and maybe we'll use professional development money to fill the gap, or maybe we'll use reserves to fill the gap, or whatever it is. When they do that, it applies pressure. It is more difficult for me to say no to my supervisor than it is for me to say no to some committee of people that I've never met. So that's got to stop, right? Ministers have got to stop applying that pressure unfairly on musicians who otherwise would probably not want to serve in this way. So that's the other part of it. And then there's got to be, and this is a longer range.
Sure, and that's the help we would love messaging with. I'm totally on board, and we just on the executive team found out that was happening this week, and I was we were all three of us were flabbergasted. And I'm sure some of it is ignorance, and some of it is not knowing, and some of it is well-intentioned. We all know impacts do not match intentions as well. But if we can, how can we educate people, our ministers? And so if we can, we would love your help with messaging, is I guess what I'm asking.
Sure, I am happy to help have a conversation about helping to write a message that says it is unethical to apply undue pressure on your staff. Certainly, I would happily help to write that letter. The other part of that conversation has got to be, there's got to be a checks and balances systems for how ministers behave while they are at GA.
Oh yes, I am absolutely on board with you. And this is a culture that is just so deep. I think Richard Speck said it's just it needs to be torn down and start from the beginning. And yes, I think people lose their minds when they get called to the big tent, and we're on board with you. And yeah, like I said, we're with you. And
sure. And the third thing I'll say, and I don't mind speaking transparently here. Jeanette, you'll remember that I served ministry days in New Orleans a couple of years ago, as the music director for that. And there was one service that I had to step away from because there was a minister who was a problem. That is my language. There was a minister who was a problem. And what would have been helpful to me in that moment is for the UUMA to say, look, we're not going to condone this behavior from ministers mistreating musicians. Instead, we're going to have a conversation to figure this out, flatten the hierarchy, and you know, get our stuff together. Also, a component here of the UUMA looking at their own house and figuring out places and identifying places in their own system that broader and wider system that they can fix from within.
Thanks, Dero. I'm going to recognize Brian Seeger, please.
Oh, please, I want to hear you. Please.
You, I didn't see you, Amanda. I apologize.
I've been trying to get a word in edgewise for a while, but I didn't know that I was unmuted. That's a problem of mine. Okay, hi. So I'm Amanda Thomas, music director of Second Unitarian Church of Chicago, member of the Board of Trustees. I resigned from being the GA choir director for this year because of the things that are happening, and I'm, you know, of course, in with the Board of Trustees. But I wanted to acknowledge someone in the chat, I can't remember who, asked if Sarah, Dan, and Emily had good experiences at GA because they were white. And I'm gonna say no. I don't feel like it has a lot to do with their race. I think it has to do with what their jobs were and the time of it. So mostly like Dero said, I feel like when we folks of color have big roles at GA, the biggest problem is the hierarchy, you know. But I have to say that I did conduct for the Service of the Living Tradition a few years ago, and that was delightful. And I did not have any problems, and I felt very loved and respected and taken care of. So, and I'm not white, so in case you can't tell.
Thanks, Amanda. Okay, and now indeed we will go to Brian Seeger.
Thank you so much. I have a lot to say, but I'm Brian Seeger. I was in the GA house band for the previous 3 years from this year, and I'm not specifically affiliated with one church, but I work in Unitarian churches all around the country. And I, first of all, just want to thank the board so much for all the heavy lifting that you've done with this. And I appreciate and respect all you all so much and your guidance on this. And in the few comments that I have is I feel that for the people that are deciding to still participate, even after they've heard what the board had to say, I wish they would offer what they think is a solution forward to getting the relationship of this all straightened out. Because I think that the board, probably this was the last thing that any of them wanted to do, would be my guess. Nobody wanted to, so they must have got to the point where they felt like they were pushed to do this. So like I feel that, you know, I'm sure they would love to hear another solution. Even if there was incremental solutions, even if they said the budget can't be this much this year and it'll be next year, and you know, just any kind of, if there was a working frame, we'll solve this by X. And when I read through all the communications, I don't see anything like that. The other thing that I would say about this is not, in my mind, this is not only about the GA. All these kinds of things trickle down through the whole system. When I reread about the situation that happened at Laredo earlier today, it just made me cry, because it was just another situation where other people that don't do what we do as a profession, don't have the training, always think that they know better than how we know about how we do this process. And when we tell them this is really how it needs to work and this is what we need, we're not heard. And it happens at the top and it goes all the way down. And obviously, yes, I know music directors in churches all over the country, and many of which love their relationship with their congregation and their minister, but there's problems. And I feel like this is an incredible opportunity to really bring this to the table, and it could solve things on micro levels as well as on macro levels. So that's what I would like to say. So thank you.
Thank you. Benji, recognizing you, unmute yourself.
Thank you, Deb. Thanks for letting me speak a second time. Brian, I wanted to respond to what you said about why are people still participating, and if they could speak, because obviously I'm participating. You know, when I was asked to, or invited to apply for this position, I knew that our board had been in negotiations with the GAPC, and I called Duro right away, and I talked with the board, and I thought about it a lot, about whether taking this job would get in the way of their negotiations. And what they told me at the time, and my understanding of it now, is that that's not true. And that's really my best thinking about it. And I've sort of been working on a statement to that effect, because I feel it's appropriate in my job as GA music director this year to invite my colleague musicians to GA and explain why I think they can attend in good faith. So I won't go into the whole thing now, but mostly I just want to say I don't actually think attending will hurt our negotiations. The negotiations are off for the year. I think we can be united in our demands when we resume negotiations for 2021. I have talked with the board about all the stuff they were proposing, and I think it's fantastic. You know, I'm all for it. And I don't think that being upset is a platform exactly to have solidarity behind. You know, I think that the changes that you were demanding in our board are great, and let's get them, and I am completely behind you. But I don't feel a need to not attend because of how those negotiations went down. And I also want to say that I really, really appreciate, Brian, you asked if there were even incremental changes. And I just want to say also, before I took the job and in the process of, you know, seeing the board's letter and talking with the board and figuring out what had happened, I heard a lot of these stories about what had happened in previous years. And I heard about how the job descriptions had been written and what people had been paid. And there have been incremental changes. I mean, I'm getting paid for my work this year in a way that Emily was not getting paid for her work last year, right? That's a change. And some of the asks that the GA Planning Committee talked with you about have been done, right? And musicians are getting a minimum of 200 per call time, although that's shifted a little in the online environment. But you know, that was, so I think there have been some incremental changes, and I'm hopeful about making more. So
thank you.
Thanks, Benji. So just to respond a little to some of that.
Come on. I'm muted.
Hi, Amanda. To respond to some of that, to some of what Benji has said, the ways that I see participation and how that can affect negotiations is that the GAPC and the UUA believe that they can successfully do GA without the AUUMM. And of course they can. Is it the same GA? Who knows? But what they have proven by garnering our participation, even under these circumstances, is that in fact they can't do that very comfortably or very well, and that's a part of the conversation. And more importantly for me, it's about relationship. They can certainly, there will always be music at GA. Certainly there will always be people who will want to make music at GA, whether they are a part of our organization or not. But if the GAPC and the UUA say they want to be in relationship with AUUMM, we are saying these are our terms for this relationship. These are our baseline terms. We must be treated well. We must be paid fairly. We must be treated with respect in order to be in relationship with you. And so sure, if they get to have their end goal, their spectacular GA, without being in relationship with us, that is fine, but they need to say that explicitly.
Thank you. And Amanda, yes.
I'm gonna let Laura take it first, please.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Amanda. I just want to say that I feel like for me, for those of us that resigned from our roles this year in solidarity with this decision, I feel like we decided to do this because we wanted to be on the side of people that we feel have been hurt and that have in the past not gotten the respect that they deserved. And so not participating this year is my physical demonstration of alignment with this board. And if at this point the board has decided that we have not reached the point in negotiations where we're in relationship, me not participating is aligning with my colleagues at this time. So I just needed to say that that is why I feel like not participating is exactly what I need to do.
Thanks, Laura. Amanda.
That's what I was going to say.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great.
Are there other comments? We have just a couple minutes left in our time together, and we don't need to use it all, but want to offer the opportunity. I'm seeing Elaine and Axel Gehrman who are wishing to speak. Can you unmute yourselves?
So just very briefly, we're the co-ministers in Monterey, California. And I'm just concerned that I know this issue was discussed pretty thoroughly last August, and then there was November, and then there's now been April. And I really want to put some pressure on some folks to make this a priority. I understand there's a lot of priorities, and I understand the UA board has been struggling with as we all have, given this new shift over. But should we all write letters to the board? I don't want to do anything counterproductive, and I'm happy to consult more with my UUMA colleagues. I really think, though, I really only know about these issues because our fantastic music director has called it to my attention. I think so much of this is really not known, even by a lot of our ministerial colleagues, much less by the larger folks. So is there something we can do at General Assembly, in the delegate voting part? I mean, I don't know. I don't think actions of immediate witness apply, but again, I guess I'm looking to organize and put some pressure to get this resolved, because it's hurtful and it's not right. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much for that.
And I'll say in response, one of the ways, so awareness is huge, right? We can only share our information with those in our circle. And the circle, the expanding of that circle is up to those who get the information. Social media is a powerful platform for this purpose. You've got ministerial colleagues in your circle that need to see this information. Make sure they see it. If your congregational leaders need to see this information, make sure they see it. Because you're right. Our tiny little musicians organization can't do a whole lot in terms of making noise, but it is the community, it's the power of community that helps to amplify that noise. And so do it, and so share it. Make sure that people know, make sure people are aware, make sure it's an active part of the conversation.
I want to also read out from the chat Sophia Betancourt's post, which is, can we also be honest that many of us have been posting these updates to UUMA pages since we first learned of the issues this fall, and I am not feeling proud of how few of our UUMA members have responded or done the work to self-educate about this situation. Thank you, Sophia, for saying that. Richard Speck is saying, sent comments to UUA President Susan Frederick Gray to put pressure on the administration to change. Thank you.
Deb, may I say something?
Please, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah Debian here. I do think it's important for you to do what you can to make this feel important to the larger denomination. And I say that because one of the most hurtful things, and I'll speak for myself here, other board members can affirm or deny this as they have felt it. But for myself personally, what has been so hurtful is to feel dismissed by specifically the members of the GAPC who came to the meetings, which again, as Duro stated, was 2. And it felt consistently like they were doing what they had to do to get us happy enough that we would play ball. And as soon as we got to that point, they was like Charlie Brown, like, psych, you know, that's what it felt like on my end personally, and has continued to feel like that over the last couple of months as we've gotten, you know, various communications that again felt completely dismissive and like, won't you please shut up and go away now, is the messaging that I have received in this work. So if you can help to say, no, this really actually does matter and we want you to work on it, that would be stupendous. And I thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Duro, I know you have some closing words, and then I hope that one of our colleagues is also ready to close us out with just a moment for our further consideration and thought.
Yeah, I don't have much to say other than to thank you all for engaging in this conversation. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for your solidarity. Thank you for your prayers. Those are absolutely necessary and welcome. Thank you for continuing to be a part of who we want to become. We are grateful to you. We're grateful for this dialogue. We're grateful for this feedback. And we are so grateful for the future that is yet unknown, but that we continue to work to build together. Am I passing this off to Reverend Lunsford?
I think that was one of the things that I was texting Reverend Lunsford about. Nothing like putting you on the spot. Are you willing to take us out with a moment?
Sure. I think I told you the other day, I always have the book ready, and I was not ready for that pass, but I always have the book ready.
There you go.
So from becoming a spiritual guide to navigating adulthood, to which I'm giving all my youth who are transitioning to college-age young adults this weekend. The words of Frank O. Holmes: life does not call us merely to do over and over again what we have already done, nor does it call us to act out as puppets, parts already assigned to us. No, in the midst of a situation which is itself ever-changing, we are free to bring into realization new relationships of understanding and goodwill and new acts of courage. Thank you all.
And thank you everyone for joining us. We have been blessed to be in conversation with you. Have a good evening. Be in touch with your AUUMM board if we can be of help to you, and be well.
Shall I unmute all for a mass goodbye?
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Later.
Bye-bye.
Yo.
Cool.
Yo.